Hi, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to write a program that connects to GitHub using the API call and passes the username and in return gets a JSON data. And finally, this program prints the JSON data into a table. Now, this may look like a very simple exercise to do, but assume that you don't know TypeScript and you want to leverage GitHub Copilot to help you write this program. So that's exactly what we are going to do today. We are going to leverage GitHub Copilot along with TypeScript as a language of choice. Now, before I move on to the code editor, I will pause and I will get back into the code editor in a moment. I'm into the code editor now, and I will show you that I have a project set up ready. I'm using bun.sh as a TypeScript compiler because it provides the first-class TypeScript support for the projects. And it has one index.ts file, which is currently doing console.log. I will run it to ensure that it works. I will do bun index.ts and we get hello world back as the output, as we can see. Now, as I mentioned in the starting of the video, that assume we don't know TypeScript much and you want GitHub Copilot to leverage their system in order to write your program. So I'm going to first show you that the GitHub Copilot is indeed installed. So I have GitHub Copilot as an extension, and I also have GitHub Copilot Chat. They both are installed, but I'm not going to leverage Copilot Chat, but rather depend on Copilot to help me write the program. So I will go back to the index.ts file. I will minimize everything so that we have enough space to write the program. To start with, I will delete this program. And I will say const get GitHub user. That, as you can see, it shows a grayed out content, which means it is suggesting us maybe you want to take username as a string, which we really want to. To accept that as an input, I will hit tab and see as we accepted the suggestion, it really got the feedback that yes, this is the direction we want to go to. So it automatically does the code completion for us. So it's saying maybe now next you want to go to a GitHub API with that username and return a JSON. And this is exactly what we want to do. So I will accept that. But how do we run this program? In order to do that, I will say await and get GitHub user octocat. And octocat is one of the GitHub username. Now, this is not printing out anything right now. So what I would rather do is console.log for this response.json. And as you can see, there's not a lot that I know other than how functions are structured. And I took help from GitHub Copilot to help me write the program. To ensure that it works correctly, I will go back to the terminal and I will run the same command again. And as you can see, we got a lot of data back from GitHub about this specific user. Now, the next thing that we really want to do is simplify what we see on the console. So maybe we should create a type for the GitHub user. And to do that, I will say type GitHub user. And as I do this, it says you really want to open the curly brace. Yes, I hit tab. And as I enter and wait for a few moments, we may get a long list of what fields GitHub API provides for a specific user. And it's all grayed out, which means it is a suggestion from GitHub Copilot. I will hit tab. And that's pretty much it. So we got the type for the GitHub user. And I will minimize this for now because this is not important in order to look at the code. And now that we have GitHub user, what we really want is not do a console log, rather update our code to return GitHub user. So if I say instead return a promise, because this will take a time, and GitHub user, it says that your code is not returning anything. So I will delete the existing code. And this is a suggestion from GitHub Copilot that you want to get the GitHub user from this JSON object and you return the user. So in this code, what it does is it takes a response.json and it puts that as the user, but it says any. So I will say as GitHub user. So now our function of getting the GitHub user is perfectly typed in the system. Now, it only returns the user, which means we also need a function to print the details for this specific GitHub user. So let's write another function, pretty print user. So as you can see, I gave initial context of what I really want to do, and GitHub Copilot gave us the suggestion. I will hit tab and hit enter. And as you can see, it's printing up the basic information using console.log. So what we really need to do is to change our code, which was initially returning the GitHub user, to pass the pretty print user. So as a next step, we'll say the first thing we need to do is to take this user in a variable and now pretty print user, which is a GitHub Copilot suggestion. Now, in this specific exercise, we gave some context of how we want to design our program, and GitHub Copilot assisted us in giving us the next steps that we graciously took from it. Now, as a next step, we are going to make sure that the program runs. I will clear the screen and run code again. So now we have the information about the AutoCAD user, but the basic information, not all the URLs. Now, one thing I don't really like is the way it has been presented, and I want this information to be presented in the table as I previously mentioned in our slide. So see what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take all the code, select all the code, and hit Command I, which opens up the GitHub Copilot in the context of the code that I've selected. And I will ask GitHub Copilot to do certain things for me. So for example, I'll say, change this to print in a table. So rather than using console.log, I am asking GitHub Copilot using inline chat is, what can we do to print this instead of one thing at a time, but into something inside the table? So as I hit, it's doing something. And as you can see, it gave a suggestion. It says you can use console.table and print all this information, but it has not accepted anything. This is only a suggestion at this point in time. So we can either discard, we can take the code, or we can accept. In this case, I'm going to accept because this looks like a reasonable thing to do. So as we accept and hit save, we're going to run the program again. And at this point in time, you can see we got the values inside the table. This is exactly what we really wanted to do as part of this exercise. To make sure it works for other users, I will change it to my own username, hmanchu. And then let's run it again. And at this point in time, you see you got different information for my own GitHub username. So to summarize, we've gone all the way from taking the code, a program, from an empty file to something wherein we can connect to GitHub using GitHub Copilot. It helped us in connecting to GitHub and getting us the information and printing them into the table. So I hope that this was useful. Thank you very much for your time.